It's time to start buffing to a shine these amazing George Cleverley. If you've seen the previous films, you'd have seen the truly shocking condition they were in previously. They're from 1969, and they've been heavily used. And they're just the most adorable, most fantastic shoe. But there were two massive issues with the shoe. Firstly, the skin, particularly across the vamp and around here, it had stretched with use. They've been used for sort of 45 years or so, and I suspect the client had sort of over time put weight on, and his feet had sort of swollen as well. But obviously partly with use and partly with the client putting weight on. That client was actually Prince Rupert Lowenstein, the Rolling Stones financial manager. I have a lot of his George Cleverley shoes. Now, a huge amount of the stitching had rotted. The elastics had stretched, really stretched. And so most of this stitching around here has been replaced by hand. I took the elastics out and I sort of trimmed them about 10 millimeters and put them back in just slightly tighter with less bagginess. And once I'd got them sort of stable, I was then able to sort of, because this is the original tree inside here, and that sort of literally you could just pour it out. It flopped about, and it just rattled. The skins were that stretched. So I was able to use steam and shrink the skins back on and get them really tight again. But then we were left with the problem with the horrendous cracked surface, and more recently, if you've seen the videos, you'll have seen me resurfacing these shoes. Now, let's just pop the trusted towel on my trousers. Following resurfacing, they were re-dyed on camera, and then I've spent about a week applying moisturiser, rubbing it in, waiting for it to dry, and then just taking a dry brush. Let me just take the excess, just a bit of kitchen towel. That's it. Just take the excess off. There we go. We'll just discard that bit. I just want to take the excess of any remnants of polish. So first thing, I'm going to just give them a good rub with a brush. It's quite physical, so if I start to huff and puff, forgive me. So I'll take off the very first bits of the. It's not polish. It's shoe cream. It's leather cream or coloured moisturiser, whatever you want to call it. Some people call it cream polish. I argue it's not a polish because it sinks into the skin. Polishers sit on the surface. Moisturiser and creams sink in. Obviously, when it sits on the surface as a polish, it builds up and causes light reflection. And this has got less opportunity to reflect the light because it sinks into the skin so well, and it draws that pigment into the skin. So that should be enough for the brush. And straight away you can see we've got a reasonable sort of level of shine. Now I've just got a bag here with all my old cloths. Which one should we go for? I don't want to use one that's too smooth. I think, that one. Because some of these are softer. I guard these jealously. They're old bed sheet, which is almost rotten, and I keep boil washing them. And yes, here we go. One that's not too smooth. I do need to. I want the cloth to sort of cut slightly. It will take quite a while of careful buffing. Last time you saw these skins close up, they looked rather like nubuck. They had a suede or a nubuck sort of appearance. They've been cut with various grades, which is all on the previous films of abrasive paper. There we go. See, it's starting to come. I will buff these with different cloths. Some of them are softer. This one's slightly coarser. It's all from the same bed sheet, but certain bits of it are softer than others. So I'll buff this and buff this. I'll probably do this for about a day if I'm truthful with you. Just dry buff it. I'm pressing on pretty hard, several kilos of pressure. It's quite physical. It's why I sound a little bit breathless. I'm really having to put my leg underneath and press. Not only am I trying to rub away any surface of the moisturising cream, I'm trying to use a little friction to force the skin as smooth as possible. Let's just move this camera slightly. Forgive my arms waving about. That's better. There we go. I need to have my legs as a base. I've got to press on so hard. But I'm extremely pleased. These are, honestly, I cannot even tell you how much time I've spent on this pair. but it's something, it's definitely more than 70 hours over a period of in excess of a year, to be honest with you, bitting and bobbing. And it's a very, very, very time consuming process. Now that has no polish on it. That's just, literally just, if you just see me just a few minutes. Oh, I am out of breath. This is very physical. And I will continue this with this cloth slightly coarse, and I'll go for a slightly finer cloth, and I'll just buff and buff and buff and dry buff for at least a day, several hours, before I then come to the final stage, which will be putting on the wax polishers. And as is usual, I'll be using a much, much harder polish on the toe caps and around the heel area to get a military sort of mirror gloss. The other areas where the shoe bends and flexes, there's no point in trying to get a mirror gloss with a hard polish. Within a second or two of wearing them, walking in them, they just cracks. It'll turn to like a crackle glaze. It'll be truly dreadful. Now then, just try a dip in my bag here, see if I can get a slightly softer cloth. That one's very soft. A little bit early for the soft cloth, but let's have a go. So there's no shortcuts to polishing or certainly restoring. It's fiendishly time consuming, but on a pair as special as these, made by George Cleverley in the late 60s for the Prince, you can sort of justify if you're a patient person. But you can see what's starting to happen here. They're coming up beautifully. And there's a long, long, long way to go. I'm not going to moisturise anymore. I've actually done this 6 or 7 times. I've applied the moisturiser, rubbed it in, waited for it to dry, and then sort of gone in with the brush and the different cloths, then applied more moisturiser and come back after a day. I've been doing this for the last week, and I'm pretty sure that the skins are saturated. You can tell they're saturated because it leaves a slight sticky, just a slight sticky sort of tacky surface where there's only so much that the skin can draw. And it's completely absorbed. Anything it's going to absorb, anything else is just going to sit on the surface now. It's like falling in a swimming pool. You get very, very wet. But if you fall in a swimming pool twice or 3 or 4 times, you're not going to get any wetter. You're already totally soaked. And that's really what's happened here. The skins are utterly saturated. So I need to rub away. It can, because it's slightly tacky on the surface. It just leaves. I don't know if the camera's picking this up. Yeah, it just leaves this very, very slight, a slight stickiness. And I'll just buff that away, rub it away. Quite a lot of friction, forcing the skins to become very smooth. Compared with how they were on the previous videos, they look like suede or buckskin. But, some hours of dry buffing, this will make a colossal difference. Before I apply the final polish, I'll get them as glass-like and as smooth as possible before we come to apply the polish. I don't want the polish doing the work. I want the polish just purely to highlight the hard work that I'm doing here. I'm not going to do any more. This is I'm not on camera. I'll do it off camera. But as I say, I've got loads of cloths, and they're all soft, but some are softer than others. And I keep a certain couple that are so almost completely rotten, but they're incredibly soft. And I don't use those for dry buffing. I use those for final buffing of the polish once we've got the polish on there. Because even the softest cloth, in a mirror shine sort of polish, it leaves thousands and thousands of little tiny squirrels, little like ice skates do on the surface of the ice. The ice seems quite smooth. When you look very, very carefully, it's got thousands of little cuts on it, and that happens if the cloth isn't soft enough or fine enough. So it's a repetitive process, but as you can see what's starting to happen here, they're starting to come up beautifully. That will take many hours of dry buffing, and I'll come back finally in a day or two and I'll apply the top polishers. But that has no polish on it. It's just dry buff skin at the moment. At least several hours before we'll start the long process of building up the polish, which in itself will take a few hours. I couldn't be happier with these. They're truly majestic, but they'll get simply better over the next few days.